stop talking
Okay.
about my laundry room, okay?
Let's
All right,
go.
there you go. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, thank you very much, everybody. We are currently live for today's Delta Lake Community Office Hour. We're live streaming to YouTube. At least I think we are. All right, so give me 1 second because I'm actually hearing a repeat. All right. All right, there we go. Okay, you guys still hear me? Good. All right. I need a nod from the panelists, please.
We can hear you, Danny. You're all good. Yes.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so we are live, so thank you very much. So for folks that are on YouTube, please go ahead and ask us questions. We're going to do a quick start, which is introductions from all. So I'm going to just do it based off of the panel that we have here. And actually, I'm going to stop sharing, and so we could just actually have a panelist view. So let me switch to the gallery view. And I will start with, from my left, QP. Why don't you do a quick introduction of who you are and why you've decided to bless us with your presence on the Delta Lake Core Community Office Hours.
All right, thank you, Danny, for the intro. So I'm QP. Hello, everyone. I am one of the contributors and maintainers for the Rust Delta Lake binding, and I'm here to help answer any question you may have for the Rust binding or the Python native binding.
Perfect, perfect. Okay, and then next would be Vinny.
Hi, everyone. I am Vinny Jaiswal, developer advocate at Databricks. I have worked with a lot of companies in digital natives, unicorns, Fortune 500 companies before I worked with Citi. So I help data practitioners to be successful on building on Apache Spark, MLflow, Delta Lake, and any open source technology. So I hope I can add value by answering your questions, or if you want to collaborate, I'm here for you. So yeah. That's about me.
Thank you very much, Vinny. Scott, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey, everyone. I'm Scott. I'm a software engineer on the Delta ecosystem team here at Databricks. I'm here today to answer any questions I can. And the current project I'm working on is like a single JVM Sparkless writer into a Delta table. So if there's any questions about that or our connector ecosystem, I'm happy to help out. Thanks, Denny.
And Denny, how about yourself? You always forget to introduce yourself.
Oh, yeah, that's okay. Thank you very much, Vinny. Hi, everybody. My name is Denny. I'm a developer advocate here at Databricks, longtime Spark and Delta Lake guy. So hopefully we can answer your questions. So we do actually have a question coming in already from YouTube. So it's great. Hey, George, how you doing? Your question here is, do you have a document or talk that we can point to or explain what data type to data type evolutions are permitted? Okay, now they're actually, I want to make sure that we're talking the same language just to make sure. Okay, you're talking about schema evolution within the context of Delta Lake. I believe that's what you're referring to. So is that the context you're talking about? So if you could just follow up in YouTube just to let us know that's what you're referring to, then we can probably answer your question actually. All right, and meanwhile, I'm actually going to go ahead and actually find the blog post that I believe George will want to actually work with. So give me 1 second to find it. All right, so George, I know you've asked a second question, okay, but I want to still answer the first question first, okay, which is considering the schema evolution. Okay, perfect. You've answered yes, that is what you want. So I have pasted into the YouTube link, all right, this blog called Diving into Delta Lake Schema Enforcement and Evolution, all right? So halfway down in the blog, we actually go ahead and talk about this, how the schema enforcement works and how they differ from column data types to the target table, things of that nature. Okay, so this is a good starting point. The second starting point actually would be specifically by going ahead and working with the delta.io. If you go there, we have the documentation there, so you can dive into it. Now, saying this because YouTube is not the best location to necessarily dive deeper into questions like this, but we still want to make sure we can help you. Don't forget to join the Delta user Slack, because that Slack will actually allow us, the four of us you see here, plus a bunch of other Delta Lake contributors, to go ahead and answer your questions particularly. So for example, you're specifically asking questions about translating date to timestamp. And so I can tell you up front, and QP and Vinny and Scott, you can definitely add into it. The key issues that when you come to that is that, depending on how you're looking at, sometimes you look at that as a string, sometimes you actually do in fact look at it as a date or as a timestamp. So there's actually a lot of idiosyncrasies when it comes to the conversion of these timestamps, because even though you're potentially using PySpark, because you had mentioned in your second question that you're using a PySpark method, the problem that you're really running into is that there's still that conversion of the PySpark method, quote unquote, back into Scala classes. And what we're doing underneath the cover is actually doing it in Scala. So that's pretty much the basic context. For the other three, anything that you think that I missed or you can add?
I think that's
That's perfect.
complete.
I think there's one more resource I can point to. Our early release has a chapter which can dive deeper into schema as well.
Oh, excellent. That's a good call out. Vinny, why don't you log into the YouTube link and or either Slack it to me and I'll prop it directly into YouTube.
Oh yeah,
So
I don't see comments, so I will just Slack you. Yeah.
All right, perfect. All right, I'll take care of that. Scott, I think you were also going to say something. By all means, go for it.
I actually wasn't. You're all good. Great answer. That's okay.
Okay. Sorry. All right.
I have a question. How do one join the Slack workspace?
That is a great question. So in order to join let me go ahead and find the link right now. But if you go to delta.io and you look at the bottom of it, there is actually a big gigantic one called Slack channel. I'm going to go ahead and copy that link and I'm going to paste it directly into the YouTube channel, so that way you have it. So that's a great call out, QP. So yes, a lot of us, as noted, because while George is definitely here, we also do want to call out that there are other people who are going to watch this video post this session. So because we're doing things like that, then that's exactly the point. Like, for posterity, we're going to leave that all there for everybody. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Is there a PySpark method that can system metadata products to this thing that sets the metadata product? Okay. Hey George, your next question here: is there a PySpark method that can set the metadata property of an object similar to the same that sets the meta property via the alias for a column to pass on to the metadata for the delta table? Okay, George, I'm not entirely sure the context of that particular question. So there is this concept of user-defined metadata that you can absolutely go work with, and you can absolutely change that user-defined metadata, irrelevant of whether you're aliasing or accessing it directly. But I'm honestly not sure what the context of that particular question is. So if you can potentially add some additional context to this, we'd be glad to try to dive into it, but not entirely sure. That's also.
Yeah, and if you can Slack us, like after joining the channel, we can help you out there as well.
Cool. So Vinny has graciously also reminded me that we have this document, which I pasted into YouTube, and also the data engineer's guide to Apache Spark and Delta Lake. So we posted both of them there as well. So hopefully that will provide the additional context that you could use. Okay. Any other questions that we can? Okay. Let's see. The Parquet format hasn't. Okay, so George, I'm going to let you type it out because yes, I do agree that the Parquet format has an object property for metadata, but I guess what I'm trying to understand, what is the context of your question in terms of working with that metadata? Are you talking about the user-defined metadata where we actually put a JSON object directly into the Parquet, or are you talking about within the transaction log itself when it comes to Delta Lake? So I guess I'm trying to understand a little bit better. So meanwhile, I'm going to go ahead and I'm a little tired of listening to my own voice. So I did want to go ahead and ask others in the panel these questions. So for you, Scott, let me start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about the Delta Standalone Reader and the Delta Standalone Writer, and what's the current status of these projects?
Sure. Thanks for the question, Denny. Yeah, so the Standalone Reader was a great project that was released Q4 last year. And what it enables people to do is, in a single JVM, without using Spark and all of its complicated transitive dependencies that you have to worry about, you can have a lightweight library that lets you read from a Delta table. So it gives you all the same transactional guarantees, like with multiple writers in a single JVM as Delta OSS. and it, implements the proper Delta protocol, so you can read everything, and it's completely compatible with other versions of Delta OSS and DBR, Databricks runtime. Yeah, so that's a great project, and what we're working on now is the Delta Standalone Writer. So it's the same thing but with writing. Targeting for that to come out, later this year. But it's a work in progress right now. Yeah, if people have any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer them.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
sure. Absolutely, go for it.
So, Scott, for the standalone reader and writer, they share the same core Scala code base as the Spark one, right?
Yeah, great question. They actually don't. So we had to make this project, the standalone project, as part of the connectors repository, as opposed to the Delta.io Delta Lake repository. So they're separate because we are re-implementing all the same transactional guarantees and asset guarantees that Delta OSS provides, but without using Spark. So if you are someone who wants to write a connector for Flink and Presto, Athena, you name it, you're able to do that without having this bulky Spark dependency in your project.
Awesome.
Yeah, great question.
And so Scott, I want you to reiterate that last part again. What's the Delta Standalone Reader or Writer potentially used for? For other projects like
connectors. Please come and make connectors. And
yes.
it's a Sparkless library, so it's lightweight, and you can integrate this into any computation engine you want.
Right. And just to harp on this point, just a little tiny bit more, Flink and we're currently utilizing it for the Flink and Presto connectors. Mm-hmm. Also, we're adding I believe an iterator for Beam and Pulsar. I knew there was one other one I was trying to remember. My goodness. So pretty cool. But then now I'm going to switch gears and I'm going to switch over to you, QP. Hey, QP, I've heard of this thing about Delta Rust, and I believe next week you and I are going to have and Tyler for that matter, are going to do a cool session on Kafka Delta Ingest. I'm just curious, what does the Delta Rust API do?
So similar to what Scott did with JVM, right? So the big data system, it's mostly JVM based. So the standalone Java reader writer will basically be ready to plug and go into any JVM based framework or systems. Now, there are a small edge case where sometimes you might want to go a little bit more extreme and not want to use JVM at all for whatever pipeline that you're building. And that's what the Delta Rust implementation comes in. It's all implemented in Rust and can be compiled to a single native dynamic libraries or binaries that you can deploy to any kind of environment without even having to depend on JVM. And that was the main goal of the project. And the first production application that we built as Script was leveraging this binding to build a ingestion daemon that ingests data from Kafka and save it directly into Delta tables, which replaces some of our really heavy duty Spark streaming jobs. And we've been seeing really great performance out of it. And I think that's what Danny and some of my colleagues will talk about next week in another live stream.
So one thing that's, sure, go for it, Vinny, please.
Yeah, so just to the panelists, right? We talk about asset transactions a lot, right? In practical scenarios, why do you care about asset transaction? If you can educate viewers about this.
So I think there are a couple of main benefits. One of the biggest benefit that we got with S3 is in S3 it's eventually consistent, and with this kind of asset guarantee, it makes it a lot easier to do multi-reader, multi-writer scenarios, right? We don't expect it to have 100 or 1,000 writers in this case, but just having 5 or 6 writers, Delta Lake can easily handle that kind of multi-writer scenarios, and it makes it really easy to build more complex data pipelines with multiple consumers and producers end to end. And a really good benefit out of this is you get time travel for free, right? Which is really cool for data pipelines where you need incremental processing or you need streaming updates.
Yeah.
So actually, I did have a follow-up question for QB actually. So specifically for the Delta Rust API, one thing I was curious about is with the Kafka Delta ingest, is the plan then also to take some of that code base and put it back into like Rust API core, so that way like, for sake of argument, I could potentially use the Python bindings with Delta Rust to both read and write to Delta Lake? I'm just curious what does that look like?
Yeah, so the Rust core today we can already do both read and write and also checkpointing. And I think we only exposed the read APIs to Python binding. So another really good benefit of writing this whole thing in Rust is Rust basically can really easily export C compatible APIs. So any language that binds with C, which is almost all the languages, can leverage the same Rust core and just get access to Delta Lake by writing a really thin layer of binding. So the native Python binding was one of the application as well. There are already a couple contributors that's already using the Python binding in production. But today we only expose the read APIs, right? So what we have in Kafka Delta Ingest today, we do have a set of higher level write APIs that's only in that repo. So in the long run, we do want to provide a high level write APIs in the Delta RS core so that it's easier for people to use. Right now, it only has a really low level set of write APIs where in order to use that, you have to have a fairly good understanding of how Delta protocol works. But we do plan to improve that in the future.
Cool, rock on. Scott, I apologize. I think I interrupted you. So yes.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to chime in that the standalone reader also supports time travel, not just a fancy Rust binding or Delta OSS API.
I would say the standalone Java reader, it's more feature complete than the Rust one. That's for sure. We're still catching up.
It's not a competition, well, unless we want to make it into one.
It's always good.
All right. I want to shift gears a little bit to Vinny now. So, hey, Vinny, I believe you and I had done a session last week a little bit about the Delta Lake OSS roadmap. I believe
Yes.
That's what was going on. So I'd love you to go ahead and provide the folks here a little bit of context. Well, I mean, I'll pull the video and paste it here into YouTube, but if you can just provide like a high level context or summary of all the different connectors and integrations and projects that are actually happening right now.
Yeah, that's a great call out, Danny. So if you attended last week's OSS session, we kind of gave an overview of what we have accomplished so far in Delta Lake OSS and then what is coming up. So QP and Scott talked about reader and writer, right? So because we have Delta Lake reader, standalone reader and writer, standalone meaning now they have no dependency over Spark. The good thing is you can expand the ecosystem, right? So what that brings is now we can build a connector for Flink, Nessie, which is we are having meetings with Dremio. We are building Pulsar connector, Lake FS. What else? Rust, of course, Kafka Delta Ingest, which QP already covered. And if you are interested in Pulsar, Ryan from Delta team is going to do a keynote in Pulsar Summit. Did I miss anything? Apache Beam. So we're going to have something over there soon. So that's about our ecosystem. And then on top of that, we also want to keep up to date with the innovation happening in Apache Spark. So we are adding some additional support for whatever is coming up in Spark, as well as Hive 3 support. So that's all is going on.
Excellent. Well, that seems like a lot, and it is. And so the one thing I definitely want to add for everybody here is basically, if you want to get involved with any of these things, we have a very active Delta community. There's more than, I've already lost track, but more than 5,000 people on the Delta user Slack. So yeah, so it's not just forums like these, definitely talk to us in Slack. We're there to answer questions, or if you've got a particular project. For example, we recently got pinged for Apache Huron, right? About potential integration with that. Yeah, we're glad to listen. So please go ahead and chime in and let us know what you're interested in doing. And I think that's it for today, unless there's no more questions coming in from YouTube. So I don't want to drag us any longer than we need to. QP or Vinny or Scott, anything else that we might have missed that we should have called out?
I will just ask this question, Danny. Like a lot of watchers and the excitement that we bring in the community from your standpoint, anybody, right? What does it take to get excited about contributing to the code, and what are the guidance you would give to all the watchers here? Yeah, easy way to get started to contribute. Yeah.
Oh, sure. I'll start a little bit, but then I definitely want Scott, yourself, and QP to actually provide their context. Okay, so I'll start by the statement is there's a lot of first timer GitHub links, okay, GitHub issues, GitHub PRs that we tag. In fact, actually, we're going to go through a PR bash probably early next week, mid to next week, actually, excuse me, where we're going to go through all of them again just to re-update them. So say, hey, if you, for example, we're missing show partitions in Delta, it's a bug, by the way. So we're missing show partitions in Delta. It's like, okay, yeah, so that's a relatively straightforward thing to fix. So yeah, we'll tag that. And so these are a great way to start. The other thing, of course, exactly what we've been alluding to, which is join the Delta user Slack, because that way you can talk to us about it. And then once you decide that you want to take on an issue, right? Absolutely, tag yourself with it. We'll do it, and we'll also add to the Slack a PR number, so that people can have discussions about that as well. So that way we can really get into it. And so saying that, as opposed to listening to me about it, I want to switch to QP, because QP, you and Tyler started that process for Delta REST API. So why don't you provide a little bit of context from how you guys did it, what you liked about it, and yes, you can go ahead and ding me for what I screwed up when I was trying to be helpful, occasionally helpful. So yes, please go ahead.
Danny, you've done a really good job. There's nothing much I can complain about you. But for me,
that's not what you say privately.
Let's keep that private for now. So for me, the main reason that the main driver for me was I actually have a real use case that I would like to that I think the Rust binding will be a good use for. So it's for me, this is not just Delta Lake in general, but I think for any open source project you want to get involved with, it's best when for you to start with a clear goal in mind, what problem do I want to solve with this project, right? And starting from there, it's easy for you to find either lacking features or bugs while you're adopting this project with the problem that you're trying to solve. So this is what the main drive for me. And how I got started was I basically just started looking at the Delta specification in the main Delta core repo, right? There's a really well-maintained README file that described exactly what the protocol expects. And that's a great way to start. Or you can read the Delta Lake paper. I think it's also a good paper to read. So these are this is what I would recommend you to get started if you're comfortable with that kind of details.
Awesome, thanks very much. Vinny, anything you want to add? And then we'll finish with, actually, you know what, I'll do the way. Scott, you want to add, and then Vinny, we'll finish with you. Yeah, Scott, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, well said, QP. Yeah, just to emphasize, use our products, use our code base, and begin with the end in mind. And you'll probably have some projects you want to work with, and throughout the way or along the journey, you'll discover some bugs, or you'll discover a feature that you really want. So then go for it. Make that issue, make that PR, and discuss with us. I've been working with a committer over the past couple of weeks who's adding a really great feature to the standalone reader. They're adding some functionality that wasn't there, and I'm great to have that discussion because we're both learning from each other, and I'm looking forward to more people contributing.
Those are perfect answers.
Vinny, anything else you'd like to add?
Oh, for me, how I contribute is literally like what Scott mentioned. It starts with finding an issue or a bug. I really get excited when I have to work with some engineers to solve the issue. And previously, I was working with a lot of customers. So I have worked with 100+ Databricks customers. And what gets me excited is problem solving. I would just look at their issue and I will try to find solution for them, whether it's a product feature or maybe it's an infrastructure related issue. So I will just try to look at the end goal. What is the problem we are trying to fix? And just, keep iterating, right? Maybe one solution can help other users. So that's how I like to help and contribute and just go on from there.
Excellent. Perfect. Well, I think this is a great way to end today's session. So again, I want to thank you, the panel here. I want to thank QP, Vinny, and Scott for taking time out of your day to go ahead and join today's Delta Lake Community Office Hours. If you have any questions and that we did not answer inside the YouTube channel, especially George, glad to see you joined the Delta User Slack during this session. So we're pretty happy about that. Please join us at the Delta User Slack, and we will hopefully be able to help answer all your questions. Again, thank you very much, and have a good day, everybody.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.